In 2024, an artificial intelligence analyzed every scan, alignment, and excavation ever recorded at Stonehenge. Researchers expected confirmation of what we already knew. Instead, Dr. Anthony Clark stared at the data for 10 minutes without speaking. Stonehenge is not aimed at the sun or the moon. It is aimed at a mathematically empty region of the night sky, a point where nothing exists. The AI calculated this positioning was deliberate, and the pattern it detected looks disturbingly like a countdown. The impossible alignment everyone knows. Stonehenge tracks the solstices. The summer sunrise spills through the heelstone. The winter sunset frames the great trilithons. Thousands of people gather every year to watch the sun perform its ancient dance with the stones. We assumed that was the point. We assumed our ancestors built this monument to celebrate the eternal cycle of light and darkness, to mark the passage of seasons. We were only seeing part of the picture. The obvious part, the part they wanted us to see. When the AI cross-referenced the exact placement of every stone against reconstructed star maps from 5,000 years ago, it detected another alignment. One far more subtle than the obvious solar events. One that does not follow the path of the sun. One that does not track the wandering moon. This alignment points at nothing. At a patch of darkness where no star shines, where no planet wanders, where nothing visible exists at all. Pure mathematical emptiness, a void in the cosmic map. Think about what this means. The builders hauled stones from Scotland. They selected rocks that ring like bells from Wales. They engineered acoustic properties that can alter human psychology. They invested centuries of labor, thousands of lives, generation after generation of backbreaking work, and they pointed their creation at empty space. But here is the catch. The AI calculated an extremely high probability that this positioning was not accidental, not approximate, not a byproduct of the solar alignments, precise, intentional. The builders aimed their machine at something specific in that emptiness, something that was not the sun, the moon, or any visible star, unless that space was not always empty, unless something was there 5,000 years ago that has since moved or faded or vanished, or unless something will be there in the future that was not there when the stones were raised. Unless Stonehenge is not looking at the sky as it was, unless it is looking at the sky as it will be. In 2024, a major lunar standstill occurred. This astronomical event happens roughly every 18.6 years when the moon reaches its most extreme positions on the horizon. The stones responded to the moon's position exactly as the ancient builders intended. After 5,000 years, the machine still works. But here's the catch. If Stonehenge really functions as some kind of cosmic calendar tracking events, we are only beginning to recognize, then the question becomes unavoidable. What moment is it counting toward? What alignment matters so much that ancient people spent centuries building a machine to mark it? What happens when the empty space in the sky is no longer empty? To understand what Stonehenge was designed to do, we first need to understand the impossible lengths its builders went to construct it. The 600-mile stone, for over a century, one mystery dominated Stonehenge research: the stones themselves. The smaller blue stones weigh between 2 and 5 tons each. The massive sarsen stones tip the scales at 25 tons. When an artificial intelligence absorbed thousands of archaeological reports, geological surveys, and environmental data sets, it settled the transport debate in weeks. The blue stones came from Wales, just as experts suspected. But the altar stone, one of the most important stones in the entire monument, does not match any quarry in Wales, Its mineral signature is completely unique. But here is the catch. When the AI compared its elemental fingerprint against every sandstone formation in Britain, it found only one match. The Orcadian Basin in northeastern Scotland, over 600 miles from Stonehenge. A team led by Anthony Clark at Curtin University confirmed this finding using high-precision mass spectrometry. They analyzed tiny mineral grains trapped inside fragments of the altar stone. Some minerals dated between 1 and 2 billion years old, others around 450 million years. This unusual combination creates a chemical signature that exists in only one place on Earth. Dr. Robert Ixer of University College London called the results unprecedented. One team member later admitted they ran the analysis 3 times because nobody wanted to believe it. Professor Chris Kirkland explained why moving a 6-ton block across Britain by land would have been nearly impossible with Neolithic technology. The terrain is brutal. Mountain ranges, river, crossings, dense forests with no roads. The distances are extreme. The logistics are nightmarish. The builders almost certainly used marine transport. They guided massive stones along hundreds of kilometers of rugged coastline using boats, tides, currents, and navigation skills we never imagined possible for people living 5,000 years ago. These were not isolated tribes stumbling through the darkness of prehistory. This was a coordinated civilization with trade networks spanning the entire British Isles. Bluestones from Wales, sarsen stones from Marlborough, sandstone from Scotland. Each material selected from a different region, each chosen for specific physical properties. But why? Why go to such extraordinary lengths for specific rocks from specific places? Because the stones were not chosen for their appearance. They were not chosen for convenience. They were chosen for what they could do. If this is already rewriting what you thought you knew about ancient history, hit subscribe. Because what the AI found about the stone's real purpose is even more unsettling. The sound that rewires your brain. In 2020, acoustical engineer Trevor Cox and his team at the University of Salford conducted the most detailed acoustic study of Stonehenge ever attempted. They built a precise 1:12 scale model using 3D printed stones, arranged exactly like the original monument. They placed this model inside a specially designed acoustic chamber. Then, they ran hundreds of tests. Voice recordings, musical instruments, frequency sweeps across the entire audible spectrum. What they discovered made Cox go silent for nearly a full minute before speaking again. Inside the stone circle, voices sounded fuller, richer, more powerful than anything Neolithic people experienced in their daily lives. Their homes were quiet. Open landscapes dispersed sound quickly. Forests absorbed it. But inside this circle of stones, even ordinary speech became extraordinary. Drums generated, vibrations that wrapped around listeners, enveloping them completely. Sound did not just travel through the space, it inhabited it. And despite the massive stone surfaces, there were no echoes. None. The inner stones disrupted sound waves from the outer ring in a way that eliminated sharp reflections entirely. The result was a perfectly controlled sonic environment, a space where sound behaved exactly as the builders intended. This was not accidental. You do not eliminate echoes by chance. You eliminate them through engineering. Rupert Till, an acoustics researcher and musicologist, discovered something else when studying the Welsh bluestones. Some produce metallic ringing tones when struck. The region they come from is actually called Maen Clochog, which translates to ringing stones. But here is the catch. The arrangement of the stones produces low-frequency resonance. deep vibrations that sit below the threshold of conscious hearing. Scientists call this infrasound. Infrasound does not ask permission. It crawls into your chest. It wraps around your spine. It settles behind your eyes like a pressure that will not release. It makes you feel something watching you from behind. Something standing just outside your peripheral vision. Something breathing in the silence between your own heartbeats. Infrasound triggers feelings of awe, unease, sorrow, and terror. It can make you sense a presence in the room when no one is there. It can induce states of heightened suggestibility and emotional vulnerability. Your rational mind keeps telling you nothing is wrong. Your body refuses to believe it. The AI processed all of this acoustic data alongside the geological information. It ran pattern recognition models trained on environmental physics, magnetic field measurements, and engineering reconstructions. And it reached a conclusion that researcher Rupert Till said kept him awake for 3 nights. The stones were not chosen for symbolism. They were not chosen for ceremony. They were chosen because each one contributed specific acoustic, magnetic, and resonant properties to a larger system. When the AI simulated how all these properties would interact together, the pattern was too specific, too coordinated to be coincidence. One researcher who reviewed the data later admitted she had never wanted to stop an analysis before. The implications were that unsettling. Stonehenge was designed to do something. The stones were components. The circle was a machine. And that machine was built to affect the people inside it. The weapon they built. But here is the catch. If certain arrangements of stones could influence human perception in measurable ways, then Stonehenge might not have been built for worship or astronomy at all. Under the right conditions, this structure could have been used to control large gatherings, to heighten fear, to induce submission, to create an overwhelming sense of divine presence during rituals. Not through persuasion or belief, through physics. Through frequencies that bypass the conscious mind and strike directly at human emotion. No chains required, no weapons necessary, just stone and sound and the crushing weight of engineered terror. Now think about it from the perspective of someone living 5,000 years ago. You have traveled for weeks to reach this place everyone speaks of in hushed tones. You have heard stories about its power your entire life. Your parents told you. Their parents told them. The place where the gods speak. The place where the earth hums with voices from beyond. You arrive exhausted, hungry, already overwhelmed by the journey. You see the stones rising against the sky, impossibly massive, arranged in patterns that pulse with meaning you cannot grasp. Patterns that seem to shift when you look away. Patterns that feel like they are looking back. You enter the circle at sunset when the light bleeds red across the horizon. And suddenly you feel something you have never felt before. Vibration begins in your chest. Not a sound you can hear, but a pressure you cannot escape. The air itself feels thicker, charged with invisible weight. When the priests speak, their voices do not just reach your ears. They surround you. They fill the space between your thoughts. They seem to come from the stones themselves, from the ground beneath your feet, from inside your own skull. Your heart races without reason. Your skin prickles with electricity that has no source. Every instinct screams that you are in the presence of something beyond human, something vast, something ancient, something that could crush you without noticing. You were not imagining it. The stones were doing it to you. The builders of Stonehenge were masters of acoustic engineering and human psychology, operating at a level we are only now beginning to understand. They knew how sound affects emotion. They knew how environment shapes belief. They knew that a man who feels terror in his bones will believe anything you tell him about gods and spirits and the price of disobedience. And they built a structure that could manufacture that terror on demand, that could manipulate the psychological state of thousands of people simultaneously. This was not a temple where people came to pray. This was a weapon of mass influence, a machine for manufacturing obedience through carefully engineered dread. For years, visitors have reported strange sensations, an unusual energy in the air, a low hum vibrating through their bodies, feelings of unease that seem to come from nowhere. What people feel today, standing among those broken, scattered stones, is a whisper, a ghost of the original effect. 5,000 years ago, when the machine was whole, it would have been a roar that shook your bones and convinced you that whoever controlled this place held power over forces you could never comprehend. And whatever they demanded of you, you would give. Without question, without hesitation, because the alternative was to stand against something that could reach inside your chest and squeeze. The hidden authority. For generations, the popular story of Stonehenge was one of unity. We imagined separate tribes from across ancient Britain coming together to build a shared monument, a symbol of cooperation, a gathering place for peace. It was a hopeful interpretation. The AI demolished it. Building Stonehenge required a strongly centralized authority. When the AI absorbed the full archaeological record and ran simulations of the social organization required, the mathematics were clear. A structure requiring this much precision, this much labor, across this many generations, could not have come from scattered tribes working cooperatively. The logistics alone would have collapsed without unified command. The stones transported from Wales, from Marlborough, from Scotland. These were not gifts offered freely by allied peoples. They were tribute from subordinate groups, resources extracted by force or by fear. The AI estimated that completing Stonehenge required thousands of laborers across several generations. That is not cooperation. That is compulsion. A society where ordinary people gave their lives to a project they would never see finished, for purposes they would never understand, under the direction of rulers who kept the true knowledge to themselves. There are no signs of large-scale warfare from this period. No battlefields, no fortresses. There was only perfect, silent organization. The kind of organization that does not need armies because it has something more powerful. Control over what people believe. Control over what people fear. Control over the very environment where belief and fear are manufactured. And somewhere in that system, a small group of people knew exactly what they were building and why. The countdown. According to the data, Stonehenge is not a primitive shrine. It is not a simple calendar. It is not a burial ground. It is a precision-engineered device. Its acoustics can be measured. Its geometry can be modeled. Its materials were selected with intention. Every component serves a role in a larger system that required centuries of labor and absolute certainty of purpose. The AI detected one final pattern. The effects produced by Stonehenge, acoustic amplification, alignment accuracy, spatial resonance, appear to peak during specific celestial configurations, solstices, lunar standstills, and possibly other alignments we have yet to fully identify. Events so rare that entire civilizations could rise and fall between occurrences. Events that operate on timelines longer than recorded history itself. 5,000 years is a long time to keep a secret. Long enough for empires to collapse, for languages to vanish, for knowledge to be rewritten as myth, and yet the stones are still there, aligned, resonant, waiting. The celestial mechanics do not lie. The point in the sky that Stonehenge targets will not remain empty forever. Stellar drift, orbital precession, the slow grinding of cosmic gears our ancestors somehow understood. All of it points toward a convergence, not in the distant past, in the coming centuries. Astronomers have calculated that certain stellar objects our ancestors could not have seen with their naked eyes, will eventually cross the alignment Stonehenge tracks. Objects that were not there 5,000 years ago. Objects that will not arrive for generations still. How did they know? What did they see that we cannot? What tools did they possess that left no trace in the archaeological record? If Stonehenge was built to mark a moment in time that has not arrived yet, then we are not uncovering ancient history. We are approaching it, and whatever our ancestors saw coming, whatever made them drag 6-ton stones across 600 miles and engineer frequencies that hijack human emotion, they believed it mattered enough to carve into the earth itself, to build a machine that would outlast their civilization, that would outlast all civilizations, that would still be standing, still be aligned, still be waiting when the moment finally arrived. The countdown has been running for 5,000 years. The question is not what Stonehenge was built to do. The question is whether we will be ready when it finally does it. If this changed how you see Stonehenge, smash that like button and subscribe for more mysteries uncovered. Let me know in the comments. Do you think the countdown has already ended, or are we still waiting?